What's good, Culturalists? Today we're taking it back to the early 2000s when throwback jerseys were XXL, mixtapes were the street's news feed, and G-Unit had the game in a chokehold. 50 Cent didn't just dominate solo, he brought the whole team with him and kicked off one of the strongest runs in rap history. Banks, Yayo, Buck, Game, even the second wave with Kid Kid, Hot Rod, and Spider Loc. If you had that G-Unit spinner chain on, you were certified. But like most dynasties, the momentum didn't last forever. Internal beefs, label shakeups, and changing sounds eventually quieted the movement. Some artists went solo and kept it pushing while others faded out the spotlight altogether. So for this video, we're revisiting the soldiers of G-Unit Records to find out where they landed after the dust settled. Make sure you guys like and subscribe if you're feeling the content, and share it with that one friend who loved G-Unit back in the day. Alright, let's get to it. When G-Unit was running the mid-2000s, Olivia was brought in as the first lady of the squad, a move that had everybody curious. Fresh off her self-titled debut in 2001, y'all remember Biz Ounce? She signed with G-Unit and became the voice behind one of 50 Cent's biggest hooks, Candy Shop. Her vocals gave the crew a bit of R&B flavor, balancing out the testosterone-heavy lineup. She followed up with features on tracks like Best Friend Remix and So Amazing, and the buzz was building heavy for her G-Unit debut titled Behind Closed Doors. But it never dropped. Internal drama, label politics, and the usual G-Unit shakeups led to the project being shelved, despite several singles and a full track list being ready to go. By 2007, she was off the label and back to being independent. Olivia kept it pushing, releasing mixtapes, doing features, and later joined the cast of Love and Hip Hop New York, which reintroduced her to a new generation. She still drops music here and there, but the big commercial moment never quite came back around. Still, her hook on Candy Shop stamped in mid-2000s history. If G-Unit was a movement, Tony Yayo was the glue guy, the day one homie who stayed down from the jump. While 50 Cent, Banks, and Buck were taking over the charts, Yayo was sitting in jail during the G-Unit explosion. But even behind bars, his presence was felt. Free Yayo shirts were everywhere and his name stayed in the mix. When he got out, he dropped his debut, Thoughts of a Predicate Felon, in 2005. It had some heat, So Seductive with 50 was a hit, and the project went gold. But after that, the momentum cooled quick. Internal label drama, shifting trends, and G-Unit's decline made it hard for Yayo to keep that same energy. Still, he never left the crew. Even when G-Unit broke up and came back together like 5 different times, Yayo stayed loyal to Fifth. He toured, dropped a few mixtapes, and kept it solid behind the scenes. Lately, Yayo's been popping up more, doing interviews, podcasting, and reminding folks he's one of the funniest and most real voices from that era. He even dropped a new project in 2023 called The Loyal, fitting title for someone who's been G-Unit from day uno. Tony Yayo may not have had the biggest career, but he played his role and never switched up. When G-Unit expanded to the West Coast, Spider Loc was supposed to be the face of that move. Repping South Central and signed in the mid-2000s, he brought a gritty LA energy to 50's empire during its peak. You probably remember him from his features on I Don't Know Officer, West Side Story Remix, and mixtapes joints that kept the streets buzzing. But despite the cosigns and street credibility, his official G-Unit debut album, West Kept Secret, never got the proper push. There were mixtapes and he stayed consistent on the underground scene, but the machine never fully got behind him. By the late 2000s, Spider Loc quickly faded from the G-Unit picture and tension between him and 50 began to bubble. He later confirmed the split was less than friendly. Still, he stayed working, acting, launching his own label, Baymac Music, and creating content through his Spider Loc Most Eastly TV YouTube channel. These days, he's leaned into podcasting, storytelling, and reflecting on industry politics, street culture, and his time in the rap game. He didn't get the G-Unit rollout he deserved, but he carved out his own lane regardless. When Rotimi joined G-Unit in 2015, a lot of people were like, wait, the actor dude? Yep, that Rotimi. But he wasn't just some Hollywood pretty boy trying to rap. The man could sing, and 50 clearly saw the vision. By the time Rotimi signed, he had already had acting credits under his belt, Boss, Black Nativity, but it was his role as Dre on Power that made him a household name. While his acting was front and center, he quietly built his music career behind the scenes. Enter G-Unit. He dropped 2 EPs, Royal Wednesday and Jeep Music Volume 1, showcasing a smooth, modern R&B sound. Think less street mixtape, more vibe with your girl in the car music. The cosign from 50 helped, but his sound didn't exactly line up with the traditional G-Unit brand, so the connection always felt a little off. Eventually, Rotimi branched out on his own, leaving G-Unit and signing a deal with Empire. That's when the music really took off. Love Rhythm became a breakout hit in 2019, and he's been in his Afrobeat/R&B bag ever since. Now he's doing sold-out shows, dropping albums like All or Nothing, and fully leaning into his Nigerian roots. From G-Unit to global R&B star, Rotimi proved he wasn't just Dre from Power. When G-Unit took over the early 2000s, Lloyd Banks was the punchline king. Cool delivery, raspy voice, and bars for days, he was the quiet assassin of the crew. His 2004 debut, The Hunger for More, went platinum, fueled by hits like On Fire and Karma. At one point, Banks was being groomed to be 50's lyrical heir. But industry politics and G-Unit's internal drama slowed down the momentum. His second album, Rotten Apple, dropped in 2006 with less fanfare, and after that, Banks went that independent route. He kept dropping mixtapes, the Cold Corner series especially, reminding folks he never lost a step lyrically. Banks and 50's relationship got kinda rocky over the years, with 50 calling him out in interviews for being too laid back and not grinding hard enough. Banks kept quiet, but clearly kept receipts. Fast forward to 2021, and Blue Hefner came back swinging with The Course of the Inevitable, followed by 2 sequels. No big singles, no gimmicks, just raw bars and grown man rap. It wasn't about chasing the charts anymore, it was about legacy. These days, he stays low, does select interviews, and lets the pen do the talking. No antics, no clout chasing, just one of the realest lyricists to ever wear a G-Unit chain. When Young Buck joined G-Unit, he brought that southern grit the crew didn't even know it needed. Reppin' Cashville, Tennessee, Buck's raw energy and real-life bars made him the perfect balance to 50's business-minded cool and Banks' lyrical chill. His 2004 debut, Straight Outta Cashville, went platinum, fueled by hits like Shawty Wanna Ride and Let Me In. At one point, Buck was being positioned to lead G-Unit South, with talks of expanding the brand through his Cashville Records imprint. It was a major look, not just for Buck, but for Southern rap as a whole. Unfortunately, things started unraveling behind the scenes. Money disputes, label politics again, and that infamous leaked phone call where he got emotional with 50 marked the beginning of the fallout. He was dropped from the group but stayed signed to G-Unit as a solo artist, basically shelved. Legal issues followed, including jail time and bankruptcy, putting his career in a rough spot. Still, Buck kept dropping mixtapes, grinding independently, and eventually rejoined G-Unit briefly in 2014. But the reunion didn't last, and more tension with 50 followed. Today, he's still active, recording, performing, and trying to regain footing. G-Unit South never happened, but Buck's place in early 2000s hip-hop? That's cemented. 50 Cent's come up is the stuff of hip-hop legend. After surviving 9 shots, getting dropped by Columbia, and flooding the streets with mixtapes, he linked with Eminem and Dr. Dre, and the rest is history. Get Rich or Die Trying dropped in 2003 and shifted the culture. In the Club, 21 Questions, Many Men, classics. He had the streets, the charts, and the mainstream all in a headlock. Then came G-Unit, his bulletproof crew that turned into a brand. Clothing, sneakers, video games, you name it, 50 was pushing it. But his run just wasn't music. He launched Vitamin Water, flipped it for a reported 100 million plus, and became a certified mogul. Music slowed down after Curtis and Before I Self-Destruct, but he pivoted like a pro. Enter television. Power turned him into a TV boss, and now he's got a whole cinematic universe under his belt with Raising Kanan, BMF, and Power Book 2. He's executive producing, acting, and making more money off screen than on stage. Musically, he still tours internationally, mostly off the strength of his early catalog, and teases unreleased joints every now and then. But 50 doesn't need to rap anymore, he's already beat the game. From mixtape menace to media mogul, 50's legacy is different. Hustler, hitmaker, and heavyweight in every sense. Kid might not be the first name you think of when it comes to G-Unit, but he was the last official member added to the squad and held it down during the second wave. Originally part of Lil Wayne's Squad Up crew in the early 2000s, Kid's early momentum got cut short after being shot 6 times in New Orleans. Fast forward a few years and 50 brought him into G-Unit around 2011. While the unit was way past its peak by then, Kid brought a hunger that the group needed. He was featured on 50's I Don't Want to Talk About It, and when G-Unit reunited in 2014, he was right there on The Beauty of Independence and the Beast of G-Unit EPs. His raw delivery and street authenticity fit right in, but he never quite got the push his talent deserved. By 2018, he quietly parted ways with the group and focused on his own label, RLLNR. That's Realionaire for those asking. Since then, he stayed consistent, dropping independent projects, repping New Orleans and staying true to his gritty, no-frill style. He's not chasing charts, just putting on for the streets. Kid may have come in during G-Unit's later years, but he was one of the few who actually kept the essence alive. When the game joined G-Unit, it felt like the final boss had arrived. Repping Compton with the Dre cosign and a 50 Cent powered rollout, Game was set up to be the West Coast's next superstar, and for a minute, he was. His 2005 debut, the documentary, was a monster. Hate it or love it, How We Do, West Side Story, platinum plaques, award nods, and heavy radio play, Game brought the West Coast back in a big way. But behind the scenes, the tension between him and 50 was already bubbling. Within months, the beef spilled into the open. Diss tracks flew, shots were fired, literally, outside of Hot 97, and Game was kicked out of G-Unit just as fast as he blew up. He launched his G-Unit campaign, kept Dre in his corner, and dropped Devil's Advocate without 50, but still managed to go platinum, proving he didn't need the unit to win. Since then, Game's had a roller coaster career, some dope albums, more beefs than a barbecue, and a lot of controversial moments. But through it all, the music never fell off. In recent years, he's dropped Drillmatic, hinted at retirement more than once, and stayed active with features and podcasts. Say what you want about the antics, but after Snoop and before Kendrick, the Game kept the lights on in LA. Now here's a name that had the streets and the forums talking, for a second at least. Hot Rod, aka Phoenix, Arizona's own, was one of the first artists signed to G-Unit after 50's debut Get Rich or Die Trying had the whole industry shook. Fifth called him, quote, the new face of G-Unit at the time. And when 50 co-signs you that early, people listen. His debut single, Be Easy, dropped in 2006 with that signature G-Unit polish, and while it had some radio traction, it didn't quite take off like expected. And that's when things got quiet, real quick. His album never dropped, and even though he was still technically signed, he kind of became the forgotten unit member. While Banks and Buck were dropping projects and Game was beefing his way to platinum status, Hot Rod was MIA. Fast forward a few years and suddenly Hot Rod pops back up, but this time not as a rapper. In 2010, 50 announced he was repositioning Hot Rod as a dance/pop artist under the G-Note imprint, calling him the G-Unit version of David Guetta. Rod dropped Dance With Me, and while it had some overseas traction, especially in the UK, it never hit in the US like that. Eventually the momentum fizzled out, and by the mid-2010s, Hot Rod was fully out of the spotlight. These days, he's still active on social media, occasionally teasing music and popping up in random throwback conversations. No major releases, no official G-Unit fallout, just kinda disappeared. Hot Rod will forever be that what could have been artist from the G-Unit roster. The potential was there, the timing and direction, not so much. When M.O.P signed to G-Unit in 2005, it sounded like a match made in mayhem. The Brownsville duo Lil Fame and Billy Dance were already known for their raw energy, street anthems, and screamed out hooks that made you want to flip a table. Songs like Ante Up and Cold as Ice were already classics, so bringing that energy to G-Unit seemed like a win. But it never quite materialized. Outside of a few mixtape cuts and a couple of features like I Whip Your Head Boy remix, we never got a proper G-Unit M.O.P project. They were supposed to drop an album under the label, but again, politics and shifting priorities at G-Unit had them on ice. By 2008, M.O.P parted ways with the unit, no hard feelings publicly, but the opportunity definitely felt missed. They went back to doing what they do best, hard-hitting underground hip-hop. Over the years, they've dropped independent projects, laced features, and stayed true to their signature sound. No rebrand, no gimmicks, just raw, rugged, and real. They still tour, still perform, and still make music that'll knock the speakers off your shelf. G-Unit never really knew what to do with M.O.P, but hip-hop heads always knew the deal. Legends regardless. When Mobb Deep joined G-Unit in 2005, it was one of those wait, what moments. Two Queensbridge legends linking up with 50 Cent? It caught people off guard, but it also made sense. 50 was a longtime fan, and signing Havoc and Prodigy added street credibility and East Coast weight to the unit brand. Their G-Unit debut, Blood Money, dropped in 2006, featuring 50, Banks, Buck, and Olivia. While it had some moments, put them in their place, still goes, it didn't hit like classic Mobb Deep. Fans weren't sold on the glossier, more commercial sound. It felt like Hav and P were trying to fit into G-Unit's lane instead of the other way around. After the lukewarm response, they quietly slid out of the G-Unit system and went back to their roots. Prodigy served a prison sentence from 2008 to 2011, but once he got out, they reunited and dropped the infamous Mobb Deep in 2014, a return to that grimy QB sound. Sadly, Prodigy passed away in 2017, marking the end of one of hip-hop's most legendary duos. Havoc has since held it down, doing shows, producing, and keeping the Mobb name alive. G-Unit era aside, Mobb Deep's legacy is already carved in stone. Quiet Storm legends forever. Yo, leave a comment below. Who was your favorite G-Unit member during their heyday? And also, what album do you wish you could have heard that never came out? If you don't know, we have a ranking of all the G-Unit albums that did release posted up on our channel. You can click it right here and check it out. Y'all enjoyed that video, man. Make sure you share it with a homie. It's your man CJ for CT. I'm out.